launch this organization, get it off the ground, and we wanted to put on a webinar here to reach out to the community and try and get some feedback and to talk about what's going on with the Podcast Academy. Today was a big day. We kind of unveiled some information, in Pod News and other places, but the big event's coming up here June 22nd. So when it's going to open up for everybody to pile in and join it and start making an impact on the podcasting space. But I don't know, Michele, where do you want to start?
Well, I've got some questions for you,
okay.
And then we'll take some questions from the audience. So, of course, one might think that someone would know how you become a member and who are the members. So I thought we should really start with who are the members? Our company's members, our individuals' members.
Right. Yeah, I think it's an individual member type of situation. Now, granted, all of us are many of us are oftentimes related to a company out there. So there is that, a loose company connection, but it's really a member or organization. And that's what we're trying to make it, is one where, a person gets involved, from a professional perspective. Now, granted, representation does follow with that, but that's not the core purpose of the organization. The core purpose is your professional development and your connection to the community and your contribution to the community, whether it's getting involved in voting for awards or voting for various initiatives that may be going on in the organization as we move into the future. So we're really just getting off the ground.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. And we did just get a question in the Q&A box. Someone was asking if this will be recorded and shared. Absolutely. We are recording now.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'd like to point out, and I'm Michele Cobb, I'm the executive director of the Podcast Academy. And of course, you probably all know Rob Greenlee from Libsyn, who is our chairperson, and he's helping us launch everything today. Now, you are representative of Libsyn in many areas, and Libsyn is helping to found the Podcast Academy. However, as a board of governors member, if you were to, goodness forbid, leave Libsyn, you still would be a member of the Podcast Academy and a member of the Board of Governors. So that's, I think, a key distinction is every single person as an individual is a member. And if you switch companies, it doesn't matter because your membership is for you. It goes with you.
Right. It's really a truly professional membership that me as a podcasting professional have that personally. So yeah, even I have to join and pay the $50 to join the organization just like anyone else. It's just I'm volunteering my time to come in and be somebody that can contribute to the process. Like I outlined in the article in Pod News, there are certainly issues and things that the organization will need to tackle to be able to have a global influence and to bring in voices into the organization and into this growing and vibrant industry that's really been developing over the last 16 years. So this is really the first time this has really been tried to be attempted at this scale and at this level. I mean, I was a part of the Association of Downloadable Media back in 2008 and 2009, which attempted to bring like an association together, but it was not at the level that this organization is trying to do it. It wasn't really, that organization wasn't focused on the education side or anything like that. It was more of a standards body, and it was more around advertising and things like that. So this organization is not necessarily focused on those areas yet, though I can certainly see this organization moving into a more of a technical best practices standardization type of organization as we move forward into the future, but that's not where we are right now. And I think that's an important thing to think about too, is that we're all about content really at the end of the day, and rewarding some excellence in podcasting from a content level and a business, so we do have components in the organization where people that are, basically two concepts: in front of a mic and behind the mic, that are important to putting content together and making a vibrant and audience building podcast. So yeah.
Well, we've got some good questions coming in. So
Awesome.
Someone wants to know, how were the board members chosen, and why wasn't it put out to the podcast community for interested candidates to submit themselves to be part of that body?
I don't know that I have a clear answer to that. I wasn't really a part of it, right?
Yeah.
At that stage, I'm a fairly recent addition to the board, but I would, just my observations, you kind of have to start somewhere, and I think, you know,
that's exactly right. And so the
go
idea,
ahead, Michele. Yeah.
The idea really was to set up a founding body of board of governors that would provide financial support and human support to starting something from scratch, and build us towards being really a full membership organization. And in 2 years, anyone who is a member can run for the board. So it's giving us time to get started. And Hernan Lopez, who did a lot of the sort of initial gathering, and Christy Mirabel, were looking to make sure, when they started with their initial idea, that we represented, as a starting board of governors, a diversity of, ethnicities, of locations, of job functions, and people who have some stake and interest in the industry. So it's just a place to start. But we look forward to everyone being able to participate as a potential board of governor in a couple of years.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be a process where the organization can select that board of governors, and then at that point it will be a representative, a little bit like a democracy or something like that, you might want to say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where people get placed on on the board based on merit and their overall contributions to the podcasting space that's recognized by large numbers of people. So
yeah, and it'll be voted on by the membership. So the governance committee right now is already starting to think about what will be the full process for someone saying, first of all, I'd like to run for the board, and then secondly, getting on the ballot and ultimately being elected. And the bylaws of the organization have a very clear commitment, just as the initial board of governors did, to making sure that we have independent podcaster representation. So there is, a requirement that the board actually have independent podcasters, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's really a key point, because this podcasting space was built by indie producers, and the vast majority of podcasters out there are exactly that. But though, quite honestly, sometimes it's a little hazy on how to clearly define what an independent podcaster is and one that it isn't. Just because they're a podcast that aligns with a large network, they can still be an independent podcaster. So it's not, sometimes those lines get a little blurry, and I've tried to be conscious of that, and also just keep that in mind as people have asked about, why it seems like that there's not as many independents involved in this at the founding, is that many of the board members are originally indie producers, and they feel that they are indie producers even today. So I think that all of us just need to open our minds and accept that, anybody that's creating podcasts in this medium is welcome, and that we should all think about each other as one entity and not kind of dividing each other up, right?
So now there's a lot of questions coming in about membership.
Right.
And we will put in the chat box the website address, which is thepodcastacademy.com. And you can go there and go onto the membership tab and find out a lot of information. Membership will officially open on Monday. But here's some questions, Rob. Yep. So someone is saying, they have almost 15 years of continuous podcasting time with a major hosting t-shirt, and also have great t-shirts, like a major hosting service, right? And great, great t-shirts there. And so the question went away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's still there.
I moved it to.
You moved it to answered, yes.
If you go to the answered, you'll see that.
I do indeed. Yep.
Yes. So the question is really, do you really need 2 letters of reference to join? Is the gist of that question.
Well, I mean, at this point, that's how we've structured the membership approval process. And I did share on my Twitter feed a sample letter of recommendation and it's also on the Podcast Academy website too, in the membership area, a link, and it's really just a matter of sharing that with a contact or a person that you know in the podcasting space that can just sign their name to it and vouch for your participation in the medium. And that's really the purpose behind it. It's not trying to make an onerous type of situation. I think all of us know someone in the podcasting space, and ultimately what will wind up happening here is that as the membership base grows on this, it'll be much more likely that a member will actually write that letter for you to accept you into the organization. But I don't know, Michele, did you want to clarify anything on that too?
Yeah, with many membership organizations and academies like this one, ultimately, as you grow your membership, it's easy to say, oh, I'm being referred by this member, and they'll write you a letter of recommendation. Here we are, we're starting. We don't have very many members at this point, none officially. So it is really just turning to your community and to other people that are podcasting to give you those references. And as Joanna said, there's something on the website to make it really simple, and you guys can refer each other, and the board ultimately will approve your membership. And as long as you follow what we're asking for, which we hope isn't too tough, it should be easy peasy.
Yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to be filling out a few of those.
Yes.
Michele, over the next few weeks. So I've already gotten a couple of asks for that as well. And it's something, as long as you have a template that you can fill out too, it kind of eases the process a little bit. But I think it's important. I mean, I do think it's important because as it's a way for the organization to kind of network out around its credibility and its validity of basically having people join this organization that are truly part of the organization or truly part of podcasting. Yeah.
Someone was just asking, Rob, what's your Twitter handle?
At Rob Greenlee with 2 E's. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a complicated question. After the Podcast Academy was announced, the membership application required podcasters to apply as a member of a specific work group or category. This works well in radio. What about those who are independent podcasters and wear all of those hats? How can we apply?
Well, I would say just pick the one that you feel like you're the strongest in, whether it's a host, whether it's, doing some editing or whatever. Just pick the skill that you pride yourself on the most would be what I would probably recommend. I've been asked this question many times, even in the last few days, because there are a lot of podcasters that wear all the hats. But what do you feel like is your strongest? Is it getting behind the mic, which is great. I mean, if you do a bunch of other stuff, that's great too. But just pick that one thing that you think you're the strongest at.
And once you get inside the application, you'll have an opportunity to pick interest groups. So one of those interest groups is multi-hyphenate for people who do it all.
Right.
There's a question about how we plan on including the international podcast community.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're going to be working on. That decision to make it a global organization was just like in the last couple months decided on. And I think what we wanted to do is get the organization launched first, and then as a board of governors decide on how we would want to roll that out. But we're certainly open to feedback globally about how we might be able to do that. If that means chapters in various countries around the world, I think I'm open to lots of ideas, and I think that the governors are as well, about how to actually include on a global scale and get people from those countries involved in participating in in the academy. At the very least, you can join and be a member. As far as I know, you can. I mean, from anywhere,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. And, ultimately we will be having live events someday, but we're going to start with many of those types of events, things like webinars like this, also social events. Those are going to be online. So now's a great time to join no matter where you're from.
Right.
Besides the annual awards, what are the initial objectives and programs of the Podcast Academy?
Well, I would say from my perspective, it's probably focus on community networking, connections, and some education initiatives moving forward. Would be the first few things that you're going to see, and then the organization is going to be working on the awards that are coming up. In the next, I don't know, I would say in the next half a year or so.
Exactly.
I don't think we've set any kind of hard dates yet on when that's going to happen, but I think that is going to be kind of our focus going forward. I mean, if we can tackle that project first, that would be a huge project to solve, and then if we can have some educational activities going on along the way and opportunities for the community to connect with each other. We've been discussing a mentorship program as well. So in trying to get the various members of the academy to connect with each other and help each other, and that really cuts to the chase of the core of what podcasting has really all been about over many years, is the industry helping itself and collaborating and learning from each other. I know that's the big foundational kind of experience that I've had in the podcasting space over the 16 years I've been involved in it, is just the cooperation and community that has been built. And that's hopefully what this organization can do, is bring the various groups of the podcasting community together into one forum that they can do that. I know that there's some things in that area that have been accomplished by, like, podcast movement community on Facebook, where they brought together, and then the She Podcasting community has brought it together, but we're trying to bring everybody from the globe into one focus here. So that's kind of how I see it. And if we can make common as much unity as we can to drive listenership, drive some sort of best practices kind of approach to doing this in the medium. Hopefully we can grow this medium into being a successful content platform, and then also for those that are on the business side, a successful area of business. Right.
So someone said, I know the Academy is a not-for-profit, but will it be funded entirely by membership dues, or will you pursue corporate money in any way?
Well, I think we're planning on having events in the future that will have sponsorships. And so some of the companies or the people that are in the organization that have companies that are supporting them by participating could certainly come in and sponsor some events. There's going to be opportunities like that in the future. So, that's another area where we haven't really wanted to go into too much on corporate sponsorship type stuff, just because we want to keep it a member organization.
So as a member organization, is there a company membership? So if you've got dozens of employees or hosts, how do you handle that?
No, there is no corporate or company membership. And if you have a large company and all your employees join, there is going to be some consideration on voting in the awards for large groups like that. So we're going to develop some processes to make sure that there isn't bias that gets brought into the process around large scales of members that are part of like one corporate entity, right?
And someone's asking, where will the community be hosted? A space where we can connect with each other. They don't see any social media links on the website. However,
we do have a Twitter account.
Yes.
Now, those are being built out. So, there is going to be some social connections. And I would think we would want to build something on Facebook, which we have not done yet. But we do have a Twitter handle. It's the letter T Podcast Academy is what it is, the handle at T Podcast Academy. it's active right now.
And there's been several questions about how people can get involved. I think some of these are really good examples. So we are very small staff. It's 2 of us working part-time on the Academy, plus all the volunteer time of the Board of Governors. But as you become a member, if you email me at Michele with 1 L at thepodcastacademy.com, and that'll be in the chat box. You can say, hey, I'd like to help you with your Twitter account. I'd like to help you with Facebook, things like that. One of the things we are trying to figure out right now is the final name for the award, which will help us with setting up some of these social communities. Because
there's lots of names being bounced around on that right now too. Some creative names, and I don't think that we've got a good handle on exactly which one that we're going to pick yet, but it'll be different than the one that we initially announced because there was already an award with that name. So it's something that we need to move on. But I think it's going to be a fun name, the one that we do pick. So it'll be good.
Yeah, it's funny how you have these things come about. You think up a good idea, and then you send it to a trademark lawyer, and they say, "Oops, look what we just found." So
right. Yeah.
There's a legal process involved.
Oh, yeah. So anything else coming in?
Oh, yeah. We've got questions coming in left and right.
Potties. Yeah, I see that one. It's not a bad one, actually.
Yeah, that was, initially tossed around. And
yeah.
What are the current gaps to make this a stronger academy? What should people in the industry do to help grow this from the beginning? That's a great question.
Yeah, I think that the big thing is just get in and join, and then tell your professional colleagues that you joined, and that the reason that you joined was to be able to unify this community and have a forum for all of us to build on, like not unlike what the National Association of Broadcasters has done. The NAB, frankly, the Academy Awards is probably another example of with the Oscars and things like that. That's the type of organization that we're trying to build here, really, at its core. I think that the NAB is probably more of a technical professional group, but the Academy Awards with the Oscars and things like that is probably a more reflective organization to what this organization is, at least today. Yeah.
And one of the questions that's come up is about diversity. How is that being addressed by the Academy specifically?
Yeah, I think if you look at the Board of Governors, there's quite a bit of diversity on the board, and I think Hernan Lopez should be commended for his efforts early on to make it a priority to have a lot of women involved and some ethnic diversity on the Board of Governors. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit more, Michele. You were involved in the earlier stages of the organization.
Yeah, again, we were thinking of not just the ethnic diversity, not just the male-female, but also things like location. So we have a board member who's in the UK, and we've got some people on the West Coast and East Coast and middle of the country. It's really trying to be representative of the, industry as a whole. Mm-hmm. And, as we are looking at what we are doing in terms of member benefits, like starting mentorship programs and things like that, it's like, how can we build into the fabric of that? Hey, I would like a mentor, but I would like this person to be someone that I identify with. And how can we build that out? So it's an exciting time to be involved in this, because we are literally moment to moment figuring things out and saying, this is an important piece of what we want to do. Mm-hmm. We are discussing it in small groups and as a large group. And as members join, they will really have a voice in helping us guide that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I know, with all the things that are going on in the world right now, we have to be conscious of those changes in the world that are happening, and that's an important part of this organization too. And it's just what we need to do. And I do see that there was a comment in here about don't go down the path of the NAB as a organizational structure, and that's probably fair feedback, but it's also, I've had a lot of involvement in the NAB over the years, and I think they do tremendous service to the broadcast and radio industry, but they are not really a content organization necessarily. So it wasn't a fair comparison. I think that the Academy Awards and the Oscars is probably a fair kind of comparison of what we're trying to build with the Academy of Podcasts.
And there's a question here. We've talked about a little bit of founding support. What is that? And, are those corporations? And really, I'll send everyone back to the website if you want to see, who those corporations are. And although Rob is a board member, his corporation is helping us get started, because when you have no members and you have no staff, it's really hard to start something. So yeah. Joanna Laskus and myself are part-time staff. So we are here to really handle the administrative stuff so that the board members can focus on the industry, the strategy, but someone's got to answer the emails. So
right. Well, that, and I think to address this topic of funding, it's really, the analogy that I like to think about it is, it's like, a startup company. I mean, there needs to be seed capital to get something off the ground, and each of the founding board members has decided to commit their time and some financial resources to seed the company to get it launched. And this is not going to be something that the organization is going to continuously do. This is just at the launch stage. So each of the board members has a certain commitment that they've been willing to adhere to provide some cash to the organization to get it off the ground, and to get staff, and to get things and initiatives going, and hosting, and all the costs that go into starting an organization like this. So thank the founding board members for coming up with some cash. And honestly, I mean, some of the board members are providing those funds from their companies, but that's still based on an individual membership. So
yeah, and there's other ways for board members to contribute, helping us get the word out and sign people up. So
like sponsoring events and things like that too.
Exactly. There's plenty of ways that all the board are participating, and that's not something that's expected of an elected board of governor in the future. So someone's asking, is there a fee to enter the awards?
I don't know. Is there a fee, Michele?
There is indeed.
There is indeed.
There is indeed. And as a new member, you can join the organization at a reduced fee. And when you go to enter your podcast for an award, you will get a break on the fee there. So non-members can absolutely enter, but non-members will pay more, and they will not be able to vote on the awards themselves.
Yeah. So I was asked this question in I think it was Twitter or a message, but can a board member, or not a board member, but a member of the organization win an award?
Well, the awards will be set up for podcasts in many cases, but that's all up for discussion. So I can tell you, and none of these things are decided, but on this week's awards discussion, we're talking about things like a Lifetime Achievement Award, and that would probably go to an individual. So those things are all in the planning stages. Right. So again, volunteer, tell me you want to help work on the awards. Right. You can have a voice in this.
Right. And I do see another question here about that there's no final mission statement yet. I think we've put one up on the front page to some degree. I don't know if it's been formalized as a mission statement, but I think it does clearly outline what the goals of the organization are.
Exactly. In order to found a corporation, we've got all those things going. So it's focusing on education, networking, and of course, the awards themselves. And the awards are super important, not just for recognizing quality work within our group of members, but also the awards give us an opportunity to market the podcast industry and to really talk about it, just like you do with the Oscars or the Emmys. So that's the equivalent for us. So hopefully it will help more people hear about podcasts.
Yeah, and I think I think Michele, you raise a good point here. Is as you look to the future, of this medium. The awards can be used as a rallying event for the industry to raise awareness of the quality and the excellence of podcasts, but at the same time, provide some visibility and some focus to probably a wide-ranging swath of content. So I think the feedback that we're going to be looking for is how we can best do that and embrace the whole industry from a holistic perspective, and not just focus on just like the top shows, but how can we bring attention to many levels of shows and ways of producing content, and actually reward excellence in the production of content too, and not just the behind the mic kind of things. So yeah.
So there's a good point here. If someone's saying, if we're taking corporate money, how can you be sure that that won't influence who wins the awards?
Well, I think we're going to have some processes in place that make sure that doesn't happen. So that is always a concern. I think in any organization like this that is doing that, I believe that there's been some challenges that even like the Academy Awards have had in this area. But I think if you're diligent about it, you're transparent about your process, and that can have a tendency to alleviate most of those fears.
And also, it goes back to the question of it's individuals who belong to this organization, and it's the individuals that vote, not the corporations. So even though there is some corporate money involved, as Rob said, that's startup money, and there are a lot of things that we're working on, like doing a webinar on a Zoom account. All of those things take a little something, and that's where the corporate focus is going, not on the awards at all.
Right. So do we have any more coming in?
We have so many questions, yes.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Oh, someone's saying, what do members get? Is there an agenda or structure for networking? I'm going to actually take this one because we planned our first social last night, Joanna and myself. We picked, I want to say August 13th, which is the Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, where we will have like a Zoom meeting. And we'll be doing these types of things at different time zones. So we'll have some that will work for international people, for the West Coast, for the East Coast. And that's just really an opportunity where people can come together and meet each other, talk to each other, go into little breakout rooms. We can talk as a group, depending on how many people show up. Eventually, some of those will be in person, where you can have your, your sparkling water or your sparkling wine with you. But for now, your beverage of choice is at home, but it allows us to participate. And Joanna and I really have fun with those kinds of events, and we look forward to meeting you.
Yeah, that's exciting. Especially in this world where people aren't going to physical conferences as much. I know that's a big issue in the podcasting medium. I know it's really changed my life. I mean, I was like spending half the time on the road going to conferences all over the country, but
me too.
And that's completely stopped now. So I'm spending more time doing this, right? So which is fine. I mean, it's something I've always done, but it's a change, and it's going to challenge us all to utilize these tools to be able to connect with each other and stay in contact. And I think we're starting to face, kind of like Zoom burnout for a lot of people, though. That's the other fallout of this. But yeah. I was facing, conference burnout on the other side too. So, but I think I think people just need to utilize the tools. But I do think that there's a new normal going on. But I do think that conferences are going to come back, and this organization is going to be involved in various conferences. I'm certainly involved in all of the big conferences and all the small ones too, in the industry, in the U.S. and then outside of the U.S. as well. So I think there's going to be opportunities for this organization to extend its reach into physical world events, eventually.
Someone's asking, how will the technically creative side of the industry be represented? So the engineers, sound designers, composers, all of that.
Yeah, I think we've recently, I think, decided that we're going to kind of, embrace that side of it as well. And I think we're still formulating exactly what that's going to look like. But I think the membership side is flexible enough to embrace those folks coming into the organization. and getting involved. And then hopefully that will spin out, some initiatives, some committees, things like that can maybe work on some things that have yet to be defined yet. But I would love to see this organization take on a variety of needs that this podcasting community has.
And certainly the online education, we actually wanted to start a couple weeks ago
Right.
with a technical webinar, which will be coming later this summer. We unfortunately had to postpone,
Right.
but those things are all in there. And that's why a real variety of membership, from the technical side, from the creative side, from the marketing side. We hope for diversity in location, in types of people that join, and in all the different things that they do. And we really encourage everyone within their communities to reach out now while the membership is only $50 and say, now we can join, we can be part of this, and we can be part of crafting it.
Right, and I think that the staff and teams that are involved in the listening side of podcasting too, a lot of the listening platforms, as you can see on the Board of Governors, we have representatives from a variety of listening platforms, from Stitcher to Spotify and Apple and those, and we welcome all of those app developers out there that are building listening apps for the podcast community too. We want to get them involved because there may be opportunities to collaborate on that side of things more too, on the listening side.
And we've got a couple more questions about, which do I apply for? In front of the mic, behind the mic? So just kind of thought we should restate that. It's really up to you. So if you do both, you can pick either one.
Right. Right. It's really, how I look at it is, what's your strength? What do you do that you think you do the strongest professionally, right, with what you do? If it's talking on the mic and being a host and creating terrific content, then go that direction. If it's editing, if it's post-production, if that's your strength, go that direction.
And it doesn't preclude you from participating.
No, it doesn't.
In
it's not like it locks you into a certain access to helpful content.
So here's a good question, one that makes me nervous as I'm the person who has to plan events. Luckily, Joanna really does the heavy lifting on events behind the scene here. Could the Academy wind up hosting a physical conference similar to Podcast Movement, or would we try to avoid competing with existing conferences?
I would think we probably want to not compete with a lot of the big conferences. I think getting involved with conferences, I think, is probably the right move for us, because we want to embrace the whole industry, not try and isolate ourselves into our own event. Now, granted, we will have our own event to some degree with the awards, right? But that won't be, probably not a big podcasting conference or anything like that. So, and there's a good chance we might align ourselves with our activities with, an existing conference too. Those things have yet to be determined.
All right, now I've got an application question. Joanna, can you turn that microphone on for us?
Absolutely.
All right, so what's the ETA on the first wave of new members being added? Some won't take too much betting with their body of work to prove. So what's the time frame? Since Joanna is really setting up all the back end systems for us. So she's been living, eating, and breathing this for the last few weeks.
Absolutely. So the process will be, the process is that you'll apply online, and
starting June 22nd, which is Monday. So don't freak out that you can't join yet.
Yeah. And then Michele and I will do an initial review of your application, and then we will bring that to the membership committee on a rolling weekly basis. So the first approval will come within a week or sooner of your application. And then at that point, you'll be granted provisional membership status. And the Board of Governors will meet on a quarterly basis to review all provisional members and grant full membership status. And there's really no, once you have that provisional membership status, we anticipate most everyone becoming a full member. But we do need to give the Board of Governors an opportunity to review memberships as part of this process.
Mm-hmm.
Since we've got you, Joanna, there's a question about, what do you and I do in the podcasting world? Why are we involved?
That's a great question. So Michele and I are really coming at this from more of a organizational management expertise area. Although we do both work in the audio industry for an audiobooks association as well. So Michele and I are both independent consultants with a number of clients. And that's, but our primary expertise is in organizational management, event management, financial management for small businesses, project management, and so on. So we partner with the Board of Governors in bringing the Podcast Academy to life. So we rely on the Board of Governors and eventually other volunteers to make sure that not only we are meeting best practices for the membership organization, but we will also be meeting best practices for the podcast industry.
Exactly. And I do a little work on a few small podcasts, and I'm a huge podcast fan. So as we thought, hey, there's an opportunity here to work with this new industry, Joanna and I got really excited. So, and we're having a great time so far. How can you not, with people like Rob on the board?
Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's been a joy to work with you, Michele, too, and Joanna. I think you guys are doing a terrific job, and I think that the Academy looks really, really great right now as we launch. And there's just a lot more to come that should really be exciting to see happen in this industry that's so overdue and needed to have a central kind of association for the industry. Yeah.
All right. Very easy question, I think. So what are the benefits to becoming a charter member of the organization and joining between now and October 1st?
You can save some money.
Exactly.
That's the biggest one that I could think of. Yeah.
Yeah. So the organization is not set up to be something that's super expensive. An individual membership is set at $100, but from now, or from June 22nd, which is Monday, until October 1st, everyone who joins will be joining at $50. So you'll renew in a year at $100, but just $50 to start. And our goal is to try and keep that low so that it is accessible to everyone. As we grow as an organization, there may become opportunities for people to be sponsored or have scholarships, things like that.
Right.
Those are all things that we're discussing, not just for membership, but also for awards. So, don't think that those thoughts haven't been had. We're just very much in the startup phase right now.
Yeah. And the more people that join the organization, the more rapidly this organization can evolve and bring as much benefits to the community as we can, because there's adequate resources to actually move forward with research. And we haven't really talked about kind of the white papers aspect of this as well, to create some sharing of research and also just bringing the industry together more.
Right. And that's what's exciting now. When we start from scratch, we can kind of do anything. So, again, I will say, please email me and say, I'd like to do a white paper. I'd like to do a webinar. I'd like to bring a group of people together, and we can provide kind of the technology and the audience, and you can provide the content.
Yeah. Any other? I'm sure we have a bunch more.
Oh my gosh,
right?
there's so many. I think we're getting to the end of the pile here, though. So what are 5 solutions or issues that the organization will be dealing with to start? I don't know if you can come up with 5, but there you go.
Well, I think that the most important one right now is just listening and hearing from the podcasting community about what the priorities are. I mean, I can have a list of priorities that the organization could tackle, but I really want to hear feedback from the community about what the priorities are, and it may be worth for us to do a survey of the membership at some point to get a more direct feedback what the priorities really are. But I mean, I think if you just look at our charter and what we're trying to accomplish, it's education, getting those in the podcast community that are doing excellent work to share that freely with the broader community, and not have all of the trainings and stuff be behind paid solutions, right? So it gives full access to diverse communities to help, increase the success of podcasting. And I think the mentorship program, I think, is a great tool too, where you're building community and connections and driving that same initiative. So I would say that's the first and most important thing, is just building community.
Absolutely, I would agree. All right, so that has brought us basically to the end of the questions. Any final words that you have for us, Rob?
I'm just excited. This is one of 2 webinars that we're going to do today. There's another one to do the exact same thing that we did at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific today. So we're going to take all your questions as much as we can, and we're going to record all these questions too. And I don't know, are we going to put both sessions up for
Absolutely.
replay? Okay.
Yep.
So
assuming all the recording goes well, that's always the hardest thing.
Right. So yeah, I mean, feel free to tell your friends or your colleagues that this webinar will be available off of the Academy or Podcast Academy's website. That you can go back in and watch it and hear the answers to the questions that have come up so far. And you're certainly welcome to send me an email, robg@lipson.com, or you can send a message on Twitter to @Rob Greenlee, and that's with 2 E's. I'd be more than happy to address those on Twitter too. But the Academy has its own Twitter account, so it's just T Podcast Academy is the handle on Twitter. So you can send in. Michele has access to that as well to answer questions there as well.
Yeah, we do have one more question about, how, again, is the Academy planning to build the audience and get more people listening?
That's a challenging question. I think it's really trying to work with the industry to build excellence in content, in production, and then also working with and this is activities that I do on an everyday basis with my job with Lipson, is working with the distribution platforms to optimize and make it as easy as possible for podcasters to get their content into these listening platforms and to optimize it and get the appropriate data out of them. But certainly the Podcast Academy has the opportunity to bring those platforms together into a forum that we can build maybe potentially build some consensus around new initiatives going forward, around namespaces, around all sorts of data issues and data. And I don't know. I think those are the main ones right now. Yeah.
And again, I'd reemphasize the awards. That's what's something, someone who doesn't know about podcasts, but they eventually hear about awards, that's like, oh, I should check out this format. I should check out this medium.
Right. And it'll raise awareness to those podcasts too, that are nominated, and ones that actually win the awards, and it'll get in the news media and the press, and it'll drive, more awareness of the medium, which will benefit everybody.
Absolutely. All right, I'll give one more second for if there's any final questions. Oh, there's always one.
Yes.
Oh, how will the voting work for the awards? We're working on that at the moment. So that's all being formulated right now. It's going to be very similar to the way they do things for like the Grammys.
Yeah.
I think there might be one more. Okay, good. Nope, we got it. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Rob, for providing us with all this great information. We can't say enough.
Thank you too, and Joanna as well. It's a team effort here, and the Board of Governors need to be thanked too for their their time and energy over the last few months trying to pull this organization together and providing a lot of great ideas. And the board meets, at this point, we're meeting quarterly right now
That's correct, yeah.
To talk about this, but there's ongoing, meetings that some of the board members have around some, like a membership committee, and the executive committee gets together, which is basically, you can see it all on our website of who's doing what around, vice chairman, treasury, secretary, all that stuff are all clearly laid out there.
Yeah, and Joanna and I are finding our new pastime is to have Podcast Academy Board of Governors subcommittee meetings. So,
right, of course. More Zoom meetings. Yes.
Exactly. But we look forward to inviting and to getting to know all the members, because that's where we will have some more oomph and power as you guys all help us as volunteers to craft what's next and to make sure that we can accomplish, setting out, becoming a big academy someday.
Yeah. And for those that don't really know who I am, I started podcasting in 2004 myself. So I've been a long time podcaster, and I currently do a podcast called The New Media Show at newmediashow.com. So if you want to keep up with stuff that I'm talking about in the industry, that's a great place to go and follow what I'm doing. I do this show with Todd Cochran, who's the CEO of Blueberry. And so we're competitors, but we do a show together. So it's good.
Well, there's no competitors and no competition when it comes to the Board of Governors themselves and the members, because everybody represents just themselves as an individual. So
right.
That's exciting. All right. Well, we hope that you will spread the word over the next couple of hours and have your friends and colleagues in the industry join us for the 3 p.m. Eastern Time session. Yep. And at this point, we will stop the recording, and thank you all for coming.
Yeah, well, thank you.